Come on, girl, let's scream.
I am a god.
No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel. This is the part where you run.
Come on, scream.
Hello and welcome to Let's Scream, a podcast where we dive into our favorite horror movies. I'm Stevie.
And I'm Parker.
And today we're looking at 2017's Get Out, directed by Jordan Peele.
Join us as we journey to the Armitage House and learn all about the Sunken Place. Are you ready to scream, girl?
Come on, girl. Let's scream.
Let's scream. Okay, so today we are joined by a very special guest, my friend Charlie!
Charlie, yay!
Hey, Parker. Hey, Stevie. Thanks so much for having me. I'm
Yes.
so excited.
Thank you
Thanks
for
coming.
joining us.
We appreciate it.
Oh, girl, you know, I'm so excited to be here. It's going to be great.
Yes, so let's talk about the origin of this. So you were hanging out at Viv and I's place.
Mm-hmm. We've been talking about the pod, and
Give it up for Viv, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Give it up for Viv.
Cue the Disney Channel sound effect.
Funnily enough, I watched this with Viv earlier today, so, perfect timing.
Oh, shout out.
Shout out.
I want to have Viv on. There's a movie we've talked about that she wants to do it for. So, and my whole philosophy is, here's how you get to be a guest on this show on Let's Scream. You ask.
Yeah.
You say, hey, I want to do this movie. Boom.
Yeah, it's that easy. I was hanging out. We'd been talking about the pod. I'd seen you taking your notes for, I do not remember which movie it was several weeks ago at this point. I think your 16th or 17th episode. It was really old.
Oh, yeah.
It was like an old black and white
You know
film.
what it was?
Oh,
Whatever
Baby
happened to
Jane.
Baby Jane.
Baby
What happened to Baby Jane?
Yeah.
That's right, because I
That's one of my favorites.
could not figure out what was going on.
Everyone, please go watch the Baby Jane episode. Nobody else did.
And we were talking about it, and I said, asked if you were going to do Get Out, if you were going to do any Jordan Peele stuff. And you said, absolutely, we're going to do Jordan Peele. It's too good not to do. It's
Jordan
too
Peele
important.
June.
Already, Parker has, y'all, just to get, please send us requests, but also we have so much planned.
We do have a lot planned.
We'll get you on the docket when we can, we promise.
But if you want to be guests and you happen to be in a film, want to do a film that we have coming up, then
Yes.
it'll work out.
I love when we have guests.
I'm excited to be here. I've been really excited to talk about this movie.
Me too, yeah.
It's one of my favorites. It's so important in a world of, horror movies, which is traditionally a white genre, done so well, though, by, the Korean community, and, featuring some of the best actors from, different races, from different gender identities, from different sexual identities. It's so cool to have a black actor kind of rise to prominence like this, and I think that Get Out was the perfect thing to get him there.
Yes. Yeah, Daniel Kaluuya. Oh my god. Incredible.
He was in
Yeah.
Skins.
Yeah, he was
in Skins?
He's English. That's
knew
like
he
when
was.
he started
Yes,
it.
he's
Like,
English.
Skins is his first big
Yeah.
thing. He was on the first 2 or 3 seasons of that show. I kind of watched that show, but it's one of those shows I watched in high school, so I blocked a lot of it out.
Understandable. That makes a lot of sense to me.
I've seen clips of that show, and I'm always like, "What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, he was messed up.
what is this crackhead show?"
He was
they
also
remade
in. I remember
three.
him from an episode of Black Mirror, one of the first
Yes.
episodes of Black Mirror.
That's what I remember him from. I think that was the first time I saw him. Yeah. He's so good, and
I think everyone in this film's very
Incredible
good. Just
Everyone's
this
so
whole
good.
film. Well, I mean, I think Jordan Peele, this film this is his debut as a director, and it's
Yes.
holy shit, this is a great way to start, because I think everything about this film is very well done. The casting, the directing, the score, the acting, everything is just, I think everything knocks it out of the park.
One of the movies where every single thing he does feels intentional, and every single thing he does feels important. You have to pay attention to it. Going back and watch, I feel like every time I find something new, it's like, I didn't notice this detail.
that's my favorite part about this movie.
Yeah.
Is every single viewing you're learning something.
Those are always my favorite types of horror films, usually, because
Those are all of his movies.
you just notice the little things more and more.
Yeah. It's little Easter eggs.
So I'm excited to
and-
compare and contrast all of that.
Oh, okay, yes. So let's talk about it. So when did we first see this movie? What's our journey?
Well, this is my first time seeing it, but it's one of those films that, like, when it came out, everyone was just talking about. So I know what the whole film is.
You
I knew
lived
everything
through the hype,
but
of
I didn't
it,
know
yeah.
like some of the like smaller details. So
Uh-huh.
like watching it, I'm like, yeah, I know everything that's gonna happen. But it's one of those films that I like. You still the whole time are like, wait, what the fuck? Like this is just like the red flags are just like constant. And
Yeah, lots of foreshadowing.
there's-
I remember it just like blew up. Like it was so much a part of the zeitgeist at that time.
Yeah.
Everyone was talking about this movie.
Yeah.
And for good reason, because he gives people a lot to talk about.
this was also I think 2017. That would have been my freshman year, our freshman year.
So we became friends like right after this movie came out. It was like towards the end of our freshman year, and then we became friends like beginning of sophomore year.
Yes.
And that's when we went and saw it, because it
We were
all
both very
goes back to Get Out. This was the movie, because I always loved Scream. And like my Aunt Chris, we talked about it on a previous episode. She would always tell me like the plots of horror movies, da-da-da-da-da. And I really liked scary movies, but it wasn't until Get Out came out that I like fell in love with horror, because I feel like Jordan Peele created this movement and like showed people how thought-provoking a horror movie truly can be, and elevated horror. That's why they call this genre of horror elevated horror. This is all thanks to Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
Like, he made this he wasn't like the first person to play around with that genre of horror, but he made it mainstream, and it was the first time I'd seen it, and it was huge. It got nominated for so many Oscars, and he won Best Screenplay on his first screenplay.
Which is-
Amazing. The God, our king.
I mean, look at the material.
Look at the material. It's so good. And I'm just like you, Charlie. I'm so excited to talk about this movie. I'm so excited to get into it.
I feel like when it came out, I didn't shut up about it for like 4 or 5 months, and then I watched it again when the Us trailer came out. It's like, oh man, I haven't watched Get Out in a while. I'm just gonna go back and watch that. I don't know if they're connected.
As like a pregame kind of.
Yeah.
To Us. And Viv and I went and saw Nope, and we loved Nope. So, yeah, Jordan Peele's my fave.
I like Us.
He's my fave, like, modern day director. All 3 of his movies are 10 out of 10. They're all so good in different ways. But I think this one's probably my favorite.
I think this is my favorite too. I also really like Us though, Stevie. Us is tremendous, and we're gonna get to that one. Obviously.
See, I need
Yeah.
to rewatch it before I can say which one. I'm more excited to see, like, after watching all 3, what my opinion is.
Yeah.
I feel like it'll be easier to give at the end.
For me, it's Get Out is up here at the top, and Nope and Us are both equally as good, and they're just right underneath Get
Yeah.
Out
I like that.
as
I
far
like
as
that.
my ranking. But yeah, brilliant. He's always brilliant. This movie just feels the most like you can watch it over and over again and rediscover things like we talked about. And that one's so fun. So, do you guys have any more like pre-spoiler thoughts?
No, but I would like to give an update on my Resident Evil series watch through.
Downloading new podcast segment. Stevie's Resident Evil recap.
You're all going to die down here.
Charlie, if you didn't listen to last week's episode, Alien, first of all, go listen to it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I have started the Resident Evil film series out of curiosity because I like the games. And they're just so bad, but I love it. But I'm so committed now.
Yeah, I don't
So
think we
I've got-
really explained like what happened. So I came over to record for Alien last week,
And I
and
was
you were
watching-
watching Resident Evil,
And you're like, what the fuck is this? I was like,
Yeah.
Resident Evil. I was like, I'm gonna go through all these.
and we were sitting there watching it, and I was like, wow, this is terrible.
I was like, I know. So I got through the first 3, so I have 3 more to go.
Wonderful.
I have liked them, but also there's so many aspects that I fucking hate about them. In the third one, so like she's like gone missing from like the agency, and they like just it's been years apparently, so they don't know where she's at. But then like there's a point where they're able to like track like radiation, like extreme levels of radiation, because she has like powers.
Okay.
That's crazy. Okay.
So fine, whatever.
She
But then
did not-
there's
I don't
straight
remember
up a
her having
point- But they
powers
still
in
have
the
not
first
found her. But then there's straight up a point where they are like on a computer, like tracking her. And Keaton was watching with me, and Keaton was like, "Wait, how?" But they haven't been able to find her for years. How are they just now like all of a sudden tracking her? Like, you know how you would with like a last like iPhone? And I was like, Keaton, you know, I don't know. There's just like a lot of unexplained shit that happens in the movies, and
No
I
answer.
kind of love it. There's also like evil crows. Ashanti is in the third one.
Oh.
What?
She gets killed by evil crows.
Brings up to
God.
Ashanti.
She
They
gives it
just
up for
did her
peck.
so dirty.
Oh my god.
She gets pecked to death by evil crows that are like zombified.
Oh my god.
An honest to goodness dream girl and an honest to goodness nightmare death. That
Yeah.
sounds terrible.
I loved Ashanti.
I might
Oh
do.
my God.
We might do like a little. I might make Parker do a little mini episode where I go over all the Resident
Yeah,
Evil
we can do a
episodes.
bonus episode.
Just a little,
yeah.
just a recap. But that is my recap. I plan to watch the other three later.
And this has been your Stevie
My
Resident
update
Evil
on
moment.
Resident Evil. So far, I think my favorite one is probably still the first one, then the second one, and the third one.
Oh, okay. So just as I thought, it keeps getting worse.
Sounds like they're all good. All I heard is that they're all good.
But they are fun. They're good.
Are they a little campy?
They're
They're
pretty
very
campy.
yeah,
They're pretty campy.
We always have space for campy.
Yeah.
But also, like, I don't know. They also try to be really serious. So
It's not.
they don't follow the games at all
Yeah.
in any sense.
It's not like camp that they wanted it to be campy. It was camp that they wanted it to be serious, and then it ended up camp, and that's the best kind of camp.
Like,
Yeah.
do you remember that show Code Lyoko?
I love that show.
That's like, I always think of that show as like, it felt like they took itself really seriously, and that
It's
made it
just
so goofy.
Yeah.
I love it. Another show that like is just actually pure camp and very self-aware. Ned's Declassified.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Great
Classic.
show.
I
Okay.
love Coconut Head. Who doesn't love Coconut,
Coconut
Head?
Head should have been a Get Out.
That would be
Who would Coconut What's the perfect casting for Coconut Head?
Georgina.
She should have had that wig. She should have had that
She
wig.
should have had a Coconut Head wig. Yeah.
We'll get into Georgina.
Georgina!
Spoiler.
I love Georgina. Okay. Yeah. So, anything else we want to add before we jump into our plot synopsis, guys?
No. Things are great. I'm excited to get into it.
I'm so excited too. Are y'all ready to get out?
I'm ready to get out.
I'm ready to get out. Get out.
Come on,
Get
girls.
out.
Let's
Get out.
Okay, so we open on a ritzy neighborhood at night. Most likely a white neighborhood. It's very intentionally so. You're supposed to feel like that.
Quiet, brick on the front lawn, perfectly uniform foot from the edge of the sidewalk to the brick, nice hedges. You know it's a white neighborhood.
You know
It's
exactly
like the Home
type.
Alone neighborhood, the house.
It's the
It's
Home
exactly
Alone
like the Home Alone
neighborhood.
neighborhood.
Damn, those houses are big.
If we'd ever gotten shots of anybody's windows, we'd have seen Macaulay Culkin.
He was there, like, doing the little face.
Just watching the whole
in the
time.
window. So we see our first character. He is a black man. His name is Andre. And he is talking to someone on the phone. We assume it's his girlfriend. About how he feels so out of, like, character in this place. He feels like he sticks out like a sore thumb, this and that. And he says, okay, I'll call you back later. I don't know where I'm going. Suddenly, a car pulls up next to him. It is a white car. And
Subtle.
then he gets, like, spooked. And he literally to himself, he's like, oh, hell no, I'm gonna go back the other way. He, like, turns around.
He says, not me.
Smart.
Yeah, not today.
Not
Not
me,
today.
not today. Already kind of playing into that trope that I love and participate in myself. You're not getting me into a haunted house. It's not going to be me today. Don't try me. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Black people don't go in haunted houses. That's why they had to kill them off first in horror movies, because they poke holes in everything.
Yep. And this movie is a version of the traditional cliches and stereotypes, like that you just noted, that black people always die first.
Yep.
Everything is inverted. We'll get into it.
We'll get into it.
Yes. But Peele has stated that he wanted this first scene to feel like a flip on the traditional white, safe suburban home that you always see in movies like Halloween. Very intentional, but he gets really spooked by this car. And he goes the other way. He starts walking. And he kind of pauses to take a look back behind him. That front driver's side door is open. And a masked assailant pops out and knocks his ass
Puts
out
him in a
unconscious.
And let's not leave it at mask. He's wearing like a Crusader's helmet.
Yeah. It is very helmety. It's kind of... I really like this look, honestly, of the masked assailant. And we'll talk about who I'm pretty sure it is when we get to it later.
Yeah. Oh, no. There's a big giveaway. That I was like... That's who I want.
I know who you are. I see you.
Yeah.
You can't hide
I
from
kind of figured, but there's a couple giveaways where you're like, oh, that's who it was. Because there's another one. We'll get into it. We'll get into it. The song, by the way, that's playing on the radio in this car.
Tell me.
Is called Run Rabbit Run. And the lyrics are telling him literally to run.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I thought was... But then also... A rabbit with a rabbit hole is kind of also, I think, something that gets played into a little bit later.
Yeah, but he gets put in the white car, in the trunk, and they drive away.
They drive right away.
We get the title card, Get Out. It's in blue font, which I guess this was supposed to be an homage to the blue font in The Shining.
Oh, The Shining.
Yeah, when they're, like, driving up to
that
The
won't
Shining
be our
hotel.
only reference to The Shining in this film.
Ooh. Go listen to our The Shining episode, by the way.
Now that you say that, that makes a lot of sense because I didn't realize, but a lot of the shots, now that I think about it, very much give that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, blue font, nice. It's probably not Times New Roman. I don't do typefaces.
It's a good Babus.
Something.
It's a Babus. Maybe it's a Babus Nuevo or something.
It's not Helvetica, and I can tell you that much.
No, it was maybe Helvetica though in The Shining. But yeah, this is reminiscent of The Shining font. It's blue, and it's overlaid in front of trees. We're on the highway in a car. The camera is watching as the trees pass by. And we get this African, I guess it's Swahilian tribal music. And the lyrics in this music are saying brother, brother, brother. So I think right away we're getting symbolism. I took it as far as the music goes, I took it from more of like a music history sort of vibe. I don't know, this is maybe just like my little theory. But that Run Rabbit Run song that's playing from the white car is like a rocker, 50s rock, kind of Elvis-y music. Oh, yeah. And that genre of music, rock and roll, if you know your music history, you know that that was heavily influenced and was essentially an appropriation of African tribal music because of the percussive elements. Yeah. So I think it's interesting that you have this juxtaposition of the 50s rock and roll white people music, and then right after you have the original music, and we're seeing trees, we're seeing roots. So I think this is like basically tying into our main character, Chris, who is what this whole story is evolved around, and his African roots, his genetics play a big part into it. So I think he's already foreshadowing what this movie's gonna be about, which is race and like racial politics and systemic racism and liberal racism. We're already seeing like hints at our themes. Yeah. Just in like the initial scoring. Yeah. So I think that's brilliant.
I'm always blown away by how much musical choices impact everything that we like watch and consume as like multimedia.
I think they make or break films a lot of times.
Yeah.
Like that's why I really like Sofia Coppola. She's one of my favorite directors because she picks like I always think she always picks really good like scores and like her soundtracks.
It's so important and it's really such an essential aspect of the role of directing that gets overlooked. But like Jordan Peele obviously handpicked this music and was a big part of the way that he
And it's like, you can tell he's like a fan of music too. And
Yeah.
I think that's why I also
Yeah.
like Sophia. I like people who have like good music taste, where it's like they have a variety of things.
So we meet our main character, Chris. We see his apartment, which has some of his photography on display, because he is a photographer. That's an important element to his character. And it's depicting iconography of Black culture mainly. He seems to be very prideful in like his heritage and his community. And this Childish Gambino song playing that has these lyrics that are foreshadowing the sinister aspect of the story, saying like a word that I can't say, be creeping. Don't let them catch you sleeping.
Redbone is a perfect song choice. We're talking about music. He goes 3 for 3 to start us off in this film. Redbone with, kind of this like almost like magma like bass line that thumps along, this like high pitched, almost kind of like scratchy falsetto from Childish Gambino. It's fantastic. And the message of the entire song, Stay Woke, will manifest so many ways in so many different interpretations over the course of this film. And at the same time, this was kind of becoming a like rallying cry, at least, in the 2017 lens for a lot of the, pro-Black, early stages of the Black Lives Matter movement and anti-racist movements, Stay Woke becoming kind of a like initial slogan for these things post like Ferguson. Absolutely a tremendous song choice, like more than perfect for the time. And now going back and watching this movie doesn't feel like a moment out of time. Like music choices like that make it feel universal,
Timeless.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, it implies some real world stuff that's going on. And it also serves as a warning and a reminder to Chris, our main character. So he's genius. He's genius. I can't say enough good things about him. Oh. This whole like series is going to be being like, I love Jordan Peele. But it's true.
He's that dude, man. Something else really cool, talking about some of the photography. One of the most famous rap songs of the 90s from Tupac, Rest in Power, has a very important lyric where Brenda had a baby. I believe that's the name of the song, and it's about how young Black women got knocked up all the time because there was so much poor education around sexual safety and maybe a little bit of Drake-like activities going on back in the early 90s as well. People fooling around with folks a little too young for them. So the photo I thought was super powerful is of the pregnant belly of the Black woman. I think it's the second photo we see.
Yes.
And Jordan Peele being such a huge presence in the Black community, referencing the hip-hop community all the time, tying kind of all these worlds together, I think that had to be an intentional choice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all depicting very iconic, like, Black imagery. There's the pit bull, like, that dog breed is synonymous with the Black community, obviously. That already, like, we haven't even talked about Chris. We haven't even introduced his scene. But it paints such a beautiful picture of who this character is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get our first shot of him, and he's not even center stage.
Right. Although those abs were center stage. Not to be like Rose about
You
it.
were
Not
like,
to like
turn the camera
objectify
down a
him.
little bit.
But yeah, he's gorgeous. Daniel Kaluuya, looking like an Old Spice ad, truly, comes out of the shower. We get cuts between him and his girlfriend, Rose. She's at this like pastry shop, getting ready to come see him, and they are getting ready for a trip. She's wearing a black trench coat when we first see her, or like a peacoat or whatever that's called. And he's wearing a white cardigan.
She's white, by the way.
And she is white, yes.
Allison Williams, queen among queens.
Yes. She
crushes this role start to
She's
finish.
in Megan.
She was in
She is in Megan.
I loved her in Megan.
She was in Girls. She was Peter Pan. Do you guys remember when she was Peter
Peter
Pan?
Pan.
Was Peter Pan.
Peter Pan live.
Yeah, Rose comes over. He's wearing a white cardigan. She's wearing the black. I thought that was like interesting that she's like almost like showing her support of his like race or whatever in like her costume design, basically. Because as it progresses through the movie, she starts wearing less black and dark colors, and she starts wearing white all the time.
Yeah.
They kiss, and they seem like a cute couple. Like, she's quirky. She's got, like, bangs.
Zoe Deschanel hair. That's how you know that she's harmless.
Yeah, they're packing for a trip, and they want to go meet her family for the first time. And he is, you know, like a little hesitant. He maybe seems a little nervous, and she's like, what's going on? Tell me. And he says, well, do they know that I'm black? And she goes, no, should they? And he's like, well, you said that I'm the first black guy you've ever dated, so it might be an important thing to mention. She reassures him, oh, my parents are so chill. Like, my dad would have voted for Obama a third term if he could. Trust me, they're not racist.
First red flag.
Flag.
You can smell the bullshit through
That's
the
the
screen.
the call is coming from inside.
Yeah.
Those
Exactly.
kinds of liberals. Gotcha.
Like, not my dad would have voted for
so
Obama.
I already
a third term.
hate that.
Yeah.
I've had that conversation. With partners. Like, hey, do your parents know that I'm black? Oh, no, I don't think I've told them. Okay, I think that would be a good idea. You know, they shouldn't care. So if you're worried about telling them because you think they will, this is a problem.
Exactly.
Even worse, I have heard that my dad would have voted for Obama a third time. It's not better in real life.
That's so disappointing.
It's so disappointing.
And I can relate.
We're gonna have to end that.
Yeah. And I will say, like, I don't know if y'all listening, maybe you've only listened to the audio version of this podcast, or we're only an audio version, but
Yeah.
Stevie and I are white. You may not know this, but surprise, we're white. But I can relate to a lot of it from a queer perspective.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's
especially the one moment where, like, we'll get into it later, but when there's like, he's not the only black person around. I'm like, I feel that when there's another queer person around me. I'm like, oh my god, thank someone to like bitch with.
right. That's so real.
Hang out with.
That's so fucking real. But yeah, like, that's definitely like something that I can draw upon when I'm watching this movie, because at the end of the day, I mean, like, when you're in a part of a marginalized group, you know when there's bullshit afoot.
Yes.
You can smell the fucking bullshit. And it's very, I relate it to the whole experience of, like, oh my god, I love gay guys. Yeah.
You remind me of Kurt from Glee.
Oh my god, let's go shopping together.
I love
Do you know
being
Darren
called a
Criss?
gay best friend. You're my gay best friend. It's like,
And then you find out that they
oh.
voted for Trump, and you're like, Becky, that's not very Yas Queen of you.
oh, that's very like gutter bitch of you. Like,
Yeah.
god damn.
You kind of gate kept girl boss in the wrong direction.
Yeah. But they start driving to her parents' house, and on the way there, he wants to smoke a cig. He's a smoker. And she stops him. She grabs a cigarette, and she's like, nope, we're not doing this. She throws it out the window, and she's like, my parents hate smoking, and we're going to have to get used to, like, not being able to smoke this weekend, because you cannot smoke in front of them. Da-da-da-da-da. He
And
calls
that's-
his friend Rod. Rod.
Who is
Give it up for
the
Rod.
best? Everyone, give it up for Rod.
Hey, Howry! Amazing.
so
the
good.
best in this. He's my favorite part of this whole movie.
Yeah.
And he is, okay, I want to get into this because I kind of talked to Parker about this before. He is the comic relief that I want in pretty much every horror movie.
Yeah. It's this
it
character. We need
just-
more Rods always.
It just
Yeah.
helps to really break up the tension. He usually comes at moments that really help to, like, make, like, suspend your expectations, I guess, or, like, I don't know, like,
He feels
it
like
makes
a-
the shocking moments even more shocking because you'll be at like you'll feel very comfortable, and then it's like, oh crap, wait, what the fuck is going on now?
Yeah.
And so I think I think Jordan Peele does a great job. He also does it in Us a lot.
He does it in Nope. He does it all the time. It's what's so good. Well, he comes from a comedy background. We didn't even talk about, like, Key and Peele. Like,
Yes.
that's where he, like, got his start from. Those sketches are fucking hilarious. And
Masterpieces.
I think comedy it's a timing thing. It's a rhythm. And horror is the same
It's
thing.
the same exact
All
thing.
dependent on timing, building tension and then alleviating the tension.
When I think of Key and Peele, I always think of like the substitute teacher sketch.
Yeah.
And how good is his, Keegan Michael Key's delivery of insubordinate and churlish. If that's off at all, it just doesn't land.
Yeah.
The whole thing falls apart. And you're absolutely right. I think that Peele's comedic timing translates perfectly into his horror timing, and you get to see both on display. The juxtaposition of what's Rod up to right now versus what's Chris going
And
through
he
on the other
also-
side of the phone.
He also makes all of his characters so likable that you really care for them.
Do you know who he reminds me of in that regard? Wes Craven.
Yes.
It's very Kevin Williamson, Wes Craven vibes. You love the characters.
I'm so glad you
You
say
don't
that.
want to see anything happen to them.
No, you don't. And I'm glad you said that because I've been thinking about this for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Get Out and Scream are almost sister films.
Yeah. No, I totally see
And
that. Yeah.
Rod comes through as one of those huge parallels. You'll have to remind me of the name of the kid from Scream, but it's the super horror movie buff.
Randy.
Yeah.
I think Rod and Randy are inverses of each other.
Yeah.
Randy's white, Rod's black.
And Rod the whole time is like, this is fucking weird, this is suspicious,
Yeah.
this is bullshit.
He's our narrator character.
Yes.
He's our narrator character. He's kind of letting us know what's going to happen.
The one you can kind of really relate to.
Yeah, but
Like-
because he's a comic relief character, everyone blows him off. It's the same. That's the thing he shares with Randy. Randy's a comic relief character, but he's in the middle of telling us about how horror movies work all the time.
Yeah.
With a horror movie obsessed killer.
Exactly.
Both are almost prophetic in the things that they talk about,
Yeah.
and it'll be interesting to kind of track how they would mirror each other through the movie.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Love Rod. He works for TSA at the airport, and he is paranoid about all these conspiracies that are happening. He especially thinks that white people are kidnapping people and making them sex slaves.
Sex slaves!
Kidnapping black people and making them sex slaves. That's his biggest thing.
Foreshadowing, maybe.
And him and Rose are chummy. You can tell she's been dating him for a while. I think they've been dating for 5 or 6 months. And she has already kind of weaseled her way into his friend group because they're all on the phone, and she's like, "Oh, Rod, we can't, can't flirt with me in front of Chris. He's gonna know that I like you more, da 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 da." And he gets back on the phone. He turns off speakerphone, gets back on the phone with Rod. And Rod's all going to a white girlfriend's house? I don't know. You...
Out in the woods?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
And he has, I can't even get the line right, but he asks one of my favorite comedic lines in any movie. What'd she have to do to get you out there? Is she licking your balls or something?
So good. Yeah. That's why Rod's the best.
Chris doesn't say no.
He gets right. He did not
Just
say
goes,
no.
bye.
Yeah, bye, hangs up. There's a big jump scare here.
Yes.
They hit a deer that jumps out in front of the car, and it breaks off the side view mirror. Chris gets really triggered. Even though, they're all fine, he's clearly, bothered by what just happened. He has trauma. And he doesn't drive, by the way. I noticed that. I don't know if he can, or I think he can, but he chooses not to.
No, they'll tell us later he can't. He has a state ID. We'll talk about that in a second.
Oh,
Yes.
that's right. Okay, so... But that's important, that the fact that she's the driver, right? And he clearly has, car accident trauma, I think. And he gets out of the car, and he goes to see if the deer is alive. He sees the deer, suffering, and, basically, he watches the deer die. And starts... He's just really affected. I don't know if he cries, but Daniel Kaluuya, his eyes just tell, the whole story.
They at least glass over. He's tearing up a little bit.
He's going somewhere.
Yeah.
He's going somewhere. We just don't know where.
It clearly it's triggering him in some way.
They call a cop for insurance reasons to report it or whatever, and the cop starts racially profiling.
Well, no, he actually he gets mad at them and says, "No, you just need to call next time. Just call animal control for this."
Right.
And they're like, "Oh, we didn't no, but then for some reason he's still like taking their IDs.
Yeah, he like asks for it's because it's racial profiling. Like, and Rose calls it out. She's all like, that's bullshit. Like, why do you need to see his ID? He wasn't even driving. Like, like, that's fucked up of you. And the cop, like, just kind of like, whatever. He gets another call and he's like, okay, bye. Like, take it easy. Da-da-da-da-da.
Same thing, though. I've had that conversation, too. I've been in that car where if you're by yourself, it's horrifying because you're like, am I going today? Is today my day, Lord? Have I been called up? Or, all I did was roll a little bit faster through a stop sign. I guess that we're having a scary moment today. But I've had, I've had past partners ask me about them, when, that moment and be like, well, you weren't doing anything wrong, so on and so forth. Why would they need all this information from you? Glad they didn't you didn't let them search your car and everything. And I'm like, that's just kind of like every day my dad and my uncle and I just call it's just driving while black. It's just kind of like a par for the course activity sometimes. And about once a quarter, I'm like, oh, well, getting pulled over in my like perfectly clean Honda CRV and happy Tuesday.
Yeah, it's so fucked up, and it's so interesting the way that Peele infuses that relationship between the police and the black community and that tension there into this story, because especially at the end there's a moment where this movie could have turned into a different movie, and we'll get there. But they get in the car after that incident and he tells her, he was like, that was hot.
Yeah, how camp. How nice. How cute.
And
just to remind you that they're in love.
Right. She says, I'll never let anyone fuck with my man.
Allison Williams.
They get to her parents' house. We see immediately that their groundskeeper is black. This is Walter. And he gives them a slow, creepy wave. And so, right away, like, you can tell on Chris's face, he's like, okay, already starting to, have some questions, like...
White family, black servants. This is... Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
The dad, Dean is his name. It's very corny. He is an overtalker. And he goes on this whole rant about how he hates deer. He's like, oh, you hate a deer? Well, I think deer are just the scum of the earth, and they're taking over the ecosystem. So you did a service today, which kind of sounds like the way I've heard some white people talk about black people.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of foreshadowing about his real opinions, right?
Yeah, if you substitute deer with something else, that's what he's saying, basically. But Dean wants you to know that he is not racist. Dean, every opportunity is telling you how he really loves this black athlete, or he's really admires this black politician, or da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And he's like a world traveler, and, oh, I'm a doctor, and I just collect all these things in my travels. Isn't it so nice to appreciate other cultures and this and that?
Yeah. This is Bradley Whitford at his absolute best. Whether you like him from The West Wing or you got him as Jake Peralta's dad on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, this is just Bradley Whitford going out and crushing it. He's so good.
Yeah, he's great. And right away, we all know dads like this, who overtalk and are trying so hard to convince you that there's a certain way that they end up inverting on themselves and word vomiting. We see
that's
his
how I also
wife.
kind of get with Rose to a point where it's sometimes you're so anti-racist, you're racist.
Yeah, it's turning back in
where
on it.
It's just kind of that's how everyone is in this movie. It's they think they're being so oh, I love black people because and it's no, you're kind of going about it the wrong way.
Kind of sounds like you're racist.
Yeah.
And you're really worried that we're going to find out.
I don't think you look at them as people too much.
Yeah. And his wife is... Can you look up his wife's name?
Catherine Keener playing Missy.
Missy, thank you, yes. She's a great actress.
She's pretty chill.
She's super chill.
She's
like, honey... take it back a notch.
She's she gets the assignment.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't want her to do.
She's like, just chill out. She is a psychiatrist who specializes in hypnotherapy, apparently. On a tour of the house, we go past her office, and it looks very, like, chill and feng shui. And she has her little teacup.
Yeah.
On the coffee table in there that we see.
Intentional set choices all around from Jordan Peele, like we said earlier. Everything he does is on purpose. And that setup where you can't see, you can only see her chair and the little teacup and the little ottoman and then nothing else in the room feels so on purpose. Like there could have been someone sitting in there now and we just wouldn't have known.
Yep. Uh-huh. Very spooky. We see a picture of Rose's grandpa. We learn that he was an Olympic track star back in the day and that he even competed against Jesse Owens. And Dean kind of gives this, like, history of that moment where Jesse Owens won right in front of Adolf Hitler, who was in attendance, and how it was like a big middle finger to Hitler. And he says, my dad, though, I mean, he was mad. I don't know if he ever got over that. Ooh.
Yeah.
Again, foreshadowing. He motions towards the basement, and he says, oh, and just keep out of there, Chris. We have some black mold down there.
And you don't even question it as it's happening. You're like, oh yeah, gross. Cool. Weird to have people over with black mold, but you know what? Let's just move on.
Also interesting that he specifically says black mold.
Yeah.
And also, that is a red flag for me. A locked basement.
What are you doing down there? What kind of secrets are you keeping?
That's secrets all around. I've watched, like, that's a Goosebumps episode where it's like, don't go in the basement. And so the dad's doing, like,
I think that's literally a Goosebumps book. I think I've read that book.
Yeah, like, the dad's, like, doing experiments. Like, no, straight up.
Maybe we could do, like, a Goosebumps series, to be quite honest. I love
Honestly, just
Goosebumps.
do a few episodes.
Maybe you should start a Patreon and do
Hey.
Goosebumps content.
Oh my god.
I would like a larger viewership before we spend time on a
Hey guys,
Patreon.
the three of you that listen.
Yeah, literally. Because, like, it's no secret. We're doing this for our friends. This is for y'all. So
Maybe one day.
we are then we are then introduced to my favorite character, Georgina. She's an icon. She's played by Betty Gabriel, who was so good in Unfriended Dark Web, which that one's good. Like, that first Unfriended is really stupid, but the second one, like, is actually, like, unsettled me. So give that a watch, you guys. I would recommend that one. But yeah, she's so good, and she's playing this character, Georgina, who is this really creepy, stiff housemaid that always has, like, this perma smile. And they play the spooky music every time Georgina comes up. And she goes, hello. And she's just standing there, and
She's always just giving the biggest, like, smile, but it's, like, so unsettling. You're like, are you okay, girl?
yeah, it's so iconic. And she's black, by the way. I don't know if we said that, but she's, again, like, another, like, member of the help, quote unquote, who is black, along with Walter, who's kind of acting creepy. So right away, you're like, what the fuck's going on? And another line that is foreshadowing for later, the dad says, well, my mother just loved this kitchen, so we kept a piece of her in here.
Georgina immediately on screen.
Yeah, exactly. The dad pulls Chris aside, and he says, look, I know what you're thinking. White family and black servants, which I thought was weird that he said servants.
Oh, what a specific word
Very
choice.
specific
That was
word
so
choice.
weird.
And he said, we hired them to help take care of my parents when they were getting older. You know, when they died, I couldn't bear to let them go. I know by the way it looks. By the way, I would have voted for Obama a third term if I could. Just in case he hasn't said it already.
Thanks, Dean. We appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Dean. I'm so glad to note that. But yeah,
Chris
again,
kind of, like, politely says, yeah, me too. He's kind of like, okay.
Chris is doing that, which, like, I've experienced from a queer perspective.
Yeah,
but
it's
like
okay,
you just
you're,
said
like,
something
you're-
that's a microaggression, but I have to make a good impression with you, so I'm politely smiling and nodding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But when he's walking past and he acknowledges Walter,
You're right.
in black culture, there's kind of two different kinds of nods that you give somebody. when it's a white person or someone you don't know very well, you give a downward nod, just kind of like, hello, nice to see you. But when it's somebody that you know, when it's just another black person, you know, from your neighborhood, someone you're comfortable with, you give the upward nod, like, what's up? And
I never knew
Walter
that.
gives him the downward nod, kind of deferential nod.
Oh my god. So then that's, oh my god.
And Chris gives him the head up nod, because Chris is taking comfort in the fact that there's another black person there, but you can kind of tell, if you're looking for it, that something's up with Walter, because he gives him kind of like, you know, hello,
I
nice
kind
to
of
see you.
My mind is blown.
But I kind of get that as a queer person. 'Cause
Yeah.
I mean, like, more with us.
We
it's
go like this.
Bitch. Well, no, it's like the, like,
I just did
it's
the
like
lip
with
this.
us with, like, the word bitch. It's like, you and I
Hey,
can call it,
bitch.
hey, bitch. Like, we know it doesn't mean anything, but it's like,
Yeah.
I can't say that in front of, like, I can't call a
Yeah,
straight
it's kind of
person
like, what do they
bitch.
call it? Code
It's-
switching? Is that what
Code
it is?
switching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like shit like that. I mean, I guess that's not obviously the exact same, but, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Or, like, how, like,
Damn, Charlie, I didn't fucking know that. That's really cool.
like how I am around, like, my coworkers, because it's all straight people compared to how I am
Yeah.
around.
They didn't even,
Y'all.
like, celebrate Pride or even mention it. That
But yeah, I'm like, it's Pride Month. Why is nobody saying
happy
anything?
fucking Pride to me, I guess.
Happy Pride to the two of you.
Thank you,
you.
Charlie.
We celebrate you.
Charlie's such a fierce ally. I will say,
Like, does your sticker on your laptop say turf, not turfs?
I have some stickers. One says turf, not turfs, and it's a pair of cleats with the trans flag on
Hell
it.
yeah. Allyship.
Allyship. And I have a
Yes.
beetle that says anxiety sucks. And then there's two bears cheering mugs, and I'm going to let you, the audience, decide whether I mean by bears.
I love it, Charlie. Charlie got me dice one time for D&D that were like non-binary themed dice. It was iconic.
Allyship.
That's what we call a fierce ally. Thank you, Mama. Thank you for your service. So we get this scene of them sitting out and like having iced tea on the patio, right? And they're asking Chris about his life, and we learn that Chris's mom died in a hit and run accident when he was little. And the mom says, "Oh, that's okay. We don't have to talk about that right now." And she taps her spoon against the teacup. That's the first time she does it. And that teacup and that teaspoon are very important. So just keep it in mind. But again, she also says, we don't have to talk about that right now. But that doesn't mean she's
Red
not going
flag.
to try and bring it up later.
Red flag.
Red
Huge
flag.
red flag.
They kind of judge Chris for being a smoker, though, and suggest that
Which,
maybe the mom do
cigarettes,
some...
I kind of get it.
Well,
Cigarettes are gross.
they're pretty gross.
It's just one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I kind of get it.
We even get the commentary here from Dean. Just that's a nasty habit. Like, it's the first little piece of aggression that we've seen from anybody in the family.
And it's funny because the mom goes, "Oh, we're not judging you," and then he goes, "Yeah, but it is a nasty habit."
Ooh.
So literally goes on to judge him.
He gets real cunty.
Yeah, he is quite cunty. And then Georgina comes. Oh, no. First, they are like, hey, maybe you should let Missy hypnotize you.
Which, no,
I used to smoke, and she cured my smoking.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Nope, you are not hypnotizing
I'm
me.
not
No
voodoo.
white ass family house in the middle of the woods. Absolutely not.
Absolutely
I'm
not.
not into that bullshit.
And they also learn in this scene that apparently there's a big family reunion that's tomorrow. And Rose is like, oh my god, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, like, it's the same. Is that tomorrow? Yeah, it's the same day. Every year.
And
No,
she
it's not.
forgot about it.
Yes, it is. It felt like something out of like a Disney Channel or like a Nick, like a Dan Schneider, which fuck Dan Schneider.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
T.
like era Nickelodeon show.
Yeah, but I know, yeah.
Where it's like it goes back and forth. Oh, yeah. But then, like you said, all of a sudden, you know, here comes Queen of the Scene, Georgina, to like take us on a real quick, very important adventure.
Georgina is pouring, she's like doing some refill of iced tea on Chris's glass, and she is like so distracted by Chris being there, and she starts to like trance out, and then she's like over pouring the tea and like spills it a little bit, and then the mom is like, Georgina, just like, you just need to get some rest, I think. And it's kind of snippy with Georgina a little bit. And Georgina is like, oh, you're right. I'm just tired. I should go get some sleep. And like
not gonna be the last time we see Georgina kind of like lose her cool.
Yeah.
No, but she's eating every time she does.
Y'all, this is pretty chill for her.
Right. Rose's brother shows up.
Yeah.
Oh God, he walks into the backyard. They're finishing their tea. They're about to have gone inside. And he just shows up, red pants. Sup, fam? I was like, oh, it's
he's a tool.
every
And
frat boy
He is such
ever.
He is like my least favorite character. I did not like he's a good
He's the worst.
He's like so unlikable.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you just like are
he
like,
sucks.
oh my god, get what you
He
like,
is.
oh you
He's
wanted to get what
Did you
you
guys think that he would kind of look like a Confederate soldier in the way his costume was designed? Look up his costume design and the way that he's like styled and tell me that he does not look like pictures of like Confederate soldiers that like are in history books. He has that like
Let me see.
ponytail, like that
he kind of
rings
does.
hair.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like
And he has,
real
a
thin mustache.
Yeah.
It's like
The
a-
like the even his color, like the color scheme,
Color palette.
the color palette.
Yeah, that's an observation I made this time around.
Because he's in the like tan, which was the Confederate soldiers, right? Wore tan.
Exactly. So I thought that was intentional, probably. So that night at dinner, the mom goes to get dessert from the kitchen, and Chris sees Georgina just standing there staring at him with her like creepy face when the mom opens the door, and it's like the music's like, duh! It's like,
Oh, she
Georgina!
got the carrot cake for dessert.
Yeah, she's like just staring. And this is when the brother starts like going on like a drunken tangent, talking about wrestling, and he's a big wrestling fan, and he tells Chris like, well, with your genetic makeup, if you really trained, you could be a fucking beast, man. Which is so uncomfortable. And then he like tries to get Chris to like fight with him, and Chris is like, I'm not gonna do that. I have this rule about
I don't fight drunk
fighting
folks.
with drunk folk. And the mom's like, you need to clean your act up to Jeremy, the brother.
She's always the one who's kind of like putting shit in
Yeah.
order.
Yeah, she seems like so far the chillest one.
She's the alpha, but she's the alpha bitch of the house.
Oh,
She's
she-
definitely-
she's like,
yeah,
she's the one who's like, we get shit
HBIC.
done. She doesn't mess around.
They have that whole weird conversation too about, you know, do you do any like fighting? Like, what's your sport? And he's like, well, I play basketball. Chris is like, I play basketball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, you know, a little bit of a stereotype. You know, Jordan Peele, I'm sure that was like on purpose, but like we could have heard football or track or anything, and probably like that still felt like it would have fit.
Mm-hmm.
But what's Jeremy's the character's name?
Jeremy.
Jeremy's talking about how he does jujitsu, and Chris is like, well, I did judo as a kid, and you know, but he like says he's talking about how he loves jujitsu because it's all about being like 3 steps ahead of your opponent and you know predicting what they're gonna do and you know reacting to it before they can, which like judo does that too, you know.
Right.
Just like an interesting note.
Yeah.
Really, because that conversation stands out to me. It's such a weird conversation, and then you're right. He goes into that headlock. It's like, let's calm down.
Yeah.
Let's chill.
Doesn't he
Is
say like Chris?
important.
It is
the
important.
headlock is a
Oh yeah.
bit of a giveaway.
That is a bit of a giveaway. And then he also says, Chris, have you ever done street fighting? Which, that's racist.
Yeah.
Ah, damn.
Jesus.
Brutal.
And that's when they go to her room and they're alone. It's at the end of the day. Rose is brushing her teeth. And she's just
this-
reflecting on the
this
day with
is
him.
the-
She's like, oh my God, I can't believe that my family's racist. Like,
And this is like the moment where I was just like, girl, you're so anti-racist, like, you're racist.
Yeah.
Like, because it's just like, first of all, your boyfriend doesn't really need to, he lived it, he doesn't need
Right.
to relive it.
We don't need
and
to
you don't need
replay.
to like kind of constantly just bring down on like, oh, yep, isn't it bad that that's happening? That sucks.
I can't believe
this is happening.
that this still happens nowadays.
Yeah, it's the
Duh.
Like, where have you been? We got
Like, come on, Becky. Like, with your bangs, I swear to God.
you know, even Jess knows what's going on. If you're gonna copy your hairstyle, it's that conversation happens so much, and I think it happens in the Black community all the time, and it happens in the queer community all the time.
Yeah.
Where and it's just the minute somebody who doesn't share that identity with you recognizes how you live all the time, how you're treated all the time, they're like, oh, wait, you deal with that all the time? Or like, I'm so sorry my family did that. I didn't realize that it was that bad. Like, and then you have to like placate them. It's like, yes, Black people are treated poorly in this country. You know, it sucks to be a queer person. you know, if you don't live in like the perfect community because
Yeah.
everybody else sucks.
Yeah. That's the reality of the situation, Becky.
Yeah.
Like, where were you?
Like, welcome to my world. Like,
Yeah.
it really is like, welcome to my world.
And yet
Like,
you
duh.
voted for Trump. Like, like maybe show up in the
Figure it
polls
out.
when it matters for us.
You know, but
It's almost like we've been saying this for decades. Some
Yeah.
centuries.
it's okay because Dean was there to vote for Obama. So we're
Right.
And we
Dean
know-
would just in case you guys didn't know, Dean would have voted for Obama for a third term.
Probably
Just
a
in case you-
fourth.
Here's the real
Even a
question,
fourth.
though: would he have voted for Hillary?
No, you know he
You know he wouldn't have voted for Hillary.
No.
But he's like, he assures her, like, honestly, I've seen worse. She probably has, which is still fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, okay, da-da-da-da, and, like, they kiss, and, like, they're still being cutesy. That night, Chris wakes up, and he is fiending for a cig. And so he's like, I need to go downstairs. I need to sneak outside. so
Turns
I
the
can get a
lion
smoke.
around first because he's like, I don't know what you just saw, but I'm sorry. Turns the lion around.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, the little like stuffed animal lion. And he goes downstairs. We see Georgina sneaking around in the darkness. She kind of like walks in the background. It's like, Jenna, Georgina. Like, I love her.
I'm here. She's always just creeping.
Creeping, yeah.
And the only hey, I can say it. Is creeping.
Oh.
Yeah. The only thought I had
I was thinking
like,
TLC creep.
Feel that creep. That's Georgina, yeah.
the only thought I had was, why the fuck Georgina ass up?
I know.
Do it.
She literally like kind of does that creepy little like pitter patter run too, like she just did 80 lines of coke in the other room. It's like, I have to clean my house.
She walks like a Powerpuff Girl. It's like
She
on
does.
tiptoes.
Yeah. And then he goes outside. This is the iconic scene that like went viral. There was a challenge of it of Walter running really fast as like the spooky violin music plays, and he's running right at the camera, and like Chris is frozen, like, oh my god, what do I do? And then he just like at the very last second turns and like runs the other way. I guess he's running laps and working out, but that was fucking scary. What the fuck
That
was
was
that?
weird.
Yeah.
That's suspicious.
Suspicious. That's weird.
Well, who talked about, and if we just didn't talk about it, cool, but was it one of you talked about camera work earlier and some of the shots that they have in this film? Because if not,
That's probably Steve.
Yeah. Yes.
so this is one of the, it's like the second or third time that we've seen this kind of shot where it's super wide and it's a fixed camera angle. And so there's no zoom, there's no like adjustments for anything going on. It
Yeah.
feels like they set a camera up on like a 0.5
Yeah.
basically. And he's just running. And when it cuts back, he's running, but he's just closer, and it's the same shot, and it feels even worse. And then
Yeah.
finally, like
Yeah.
on like the third time, after Chris kind of starts to back up, now the camera angle's adjusted to show you like just how close he's gotten.
Yeah.
But we see these kind of shots several times through the film. When they have the same kind of shot of the house right at the beginning when they're all like greeting each other and walking inside.
Yeah.
Worth pointing out that literally you could cut that house in half in that view, and the only thing that would be out of place is that their little Lincoln would be on one side.
Yeah.
And that won't be the last time that we see things that are like perfectly symmetrical. He likes to play with that theme a lot through this film.
Oh, I never noticed that. That's really cool.
So we'll see that wide shot, those kind of like fixed shots come back several times. And it's just really cool to see because it kind of is like, oh, I'm like watching this not just through my movie screen, you know, but like because I'm now here in the moment. It's like I'm still like separated by like
And
this
that
lens.
a lot of those shots are what once you pointed out, it reminds you of The Shining. That's immediately what, like some of those shots remind me because that's so used in The Shining to like show like the scale of the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like not the house, the hotel.
The Overlook Hotel, yeah. He turns around and he sees Georgina staring. It looks like she's staring at him, but then we realize she's looking at her reflection in the window, and she starts like kind of serving Clinton.
she like parts.
She's like, "Ooh, what if I did my bang
hair
this
to the
way?
side.
No,
She's like,
let me put my bang this way. Like, I
this
don't
way.
know."
She's like, it's really funny.
And then she like kind of like jerks up to attention again. Then she's like, "Time to go clean something," and like turns around and like
Just bolts off.
It's just being Georgina, being an icon. I love her. He goes back inside, and he's stopped by Missy when he walks past her office. And she's sitting there with her teacup and her silver spoon. It's a silver teaspoon. And I think that's intentional because silver spoon
Silver spoon.
represents privilege.
Yep.
I.e. white privilege. Again, she seems so chill this whole time. She's like, just come and join me for a cup of tea. And hey, do you want to see how this like whole hypnotizing thing works? And he's like, do you get like a little pocket watch and swing it in front of me? And she's like,
You watch too much TV.
yeah, you must watch too much TV. And he's like, well, when I was a kid, I used to watch TV a lot. And she goes, I want to talk about your mom. How old were you when she died? Like, all of a sudden. And he's like, I don't want to talk about that. He realizes she is already hypnotizing him by swirling her teaspoon around the edge of the teacup and, like, making that... It reminded me of, what are those things called?
The sound bowls.
And it's making that droning effect, the clinking of the spoon. And he can't help but tell her the details of his mom's death because she's literally drawing it out of him with her hypnosis. And she says, where were you when she died? And he says, I was watching TV. It was raining outside. And she's like, can you hear the rain? Try and find it for me. And then the sound effects come in. We can hear the rain. We see the flashback. We see him sitting there watching TV when he was a little kid. And he starts crying because, like, this is so triggering and horrible and traumatic. And he says, I was waiting for my mom to come home. I was watching TV. And the whole time I knew that something was wrong and that, like, she should be home by now. But I didn't do anything. And she starts to, like, taunt him and torment him because she's like, well, you just sat there? Why didn't you do anything? Like, fucking with him. He says, why can't I move? And she says, you're paralyzed. You just have to sit there and do nothing. Just like you did when she died. You did nothing. Now, sink into the floor. And she clings her spoon, and then he goes into the sunken place. Which is really terrifying. So we literally see, like, young Chris, when he was watching TV as a kid, sink into his bed, and he finds his subconscious floating around in this infinite wasteland of, like, stars, and it's all creepy, and it looks like maybe he's kind of at the bottom of the well, I guess, is what it kind of gives me. And reality is just this, like, little TV screen, basically, that keeps getting further and further away. And she says, now you're in the sunken place. And she comes up to him, and she closes his eyes shut for him.
That shot is the same kind of fixed camera work shot that we just saw outside. It was like, this is just on a point. Because it looks like she's walking up to a window, like she's, like, looking through, like, an oven or something.
Oh, yeah.
Talk to him.
Yeah. Really cool camera work. The sunken place is terrifying. Like, can you imagine, like, having no control of your body, just floating around in your own subconscious? It's almost like floating around in space. We talked about in our Alien episode, like, how the concept of floating around in space, like, really scares the shit out of me. That's what this gives me.
Daniel Kaluuya is so good in this scene. Like, everything that he does, like, it's such good detail work. I wonder how much, like, was called for in the writing and how much was, like, he improvised. Especially, like, he's, like, picking, like, his hand, he's, like, so tense that his fingers are, like, involuntarily, like, picking at the arms of the chair that he's in. His body looks all frozen up. It's, like, got this, like, sideways head tilt that he sits in. Oh, it's so good. And tears are just... like tears. Perfect, like, rivulets down his face.
Beautiful tears, yeah. Oh my god, he's so good. He's gonna win an Oscar someday. He's absolutely going to win an Oscar. He wakes up the next morning in a cold sweat. Oh my god. And he goes for a walk to clear his head. He sees Georgina in the upstairs window, and he uses his camera lens to kind of, like, zoom in on her. And she jump scares, looks right at him through the lens. So he's like, oh.
She, like, whips her head. She's like, what?
She's fixing her hair. We're seeing her do something with her hair for the second time.
Yeah. She's always trying to do a side bang. Girl, just stick with the middle part. It looks good. She's got the face for it.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's a side bang girly. But he goes to talk to Walter, okay? Walter is like Georgina, very stiff, very cheerful, very off-putting. He talks like he's from the fucking 1940s or like a Disney character, kind of. He's like, well, golly gee, it's so nice outside today. Like, zippity-doo-dah, like, pretty much. And
He's got like a sorry to bother you, like, white man voice.
yeah, he sounds like a white man trapped in a black man's body. Does he not?
Kind of does.
Mm-hmm. And he says, oh, that rose is very lovely, aren't you, the lucky duck? And
Oh, it's so weird. He talks about her and it's so weird, like, quite a looker, huh?
yeah.
Like, ew.
That's my girlfriend, freak. And then he goes, did it work? And Chris is like, did what work? And he goes, the hypnosis. I saw you in Mrs. What's her last name?
Mrs. Armitage.
Armitage's office.
Yeah, Chris is like, I almost forgot about that.
Yeah.
Must have had too much wine.
Yeah.
Which, like, been there.
It happens to the best of us.
We all. But yeah, it's kind of like, or reaffirming to him, like, no, wait, that wasn't a nightmare, that was real. Like, her ass did hypnotize my ass. What the fuck? Chris goes and tells Rose about the hypnotism, and we learn that it worked. He's like, yeah, I don't want to smoke anymore, so I guess it did work. And he also tells her about the combo he had with Walter. And Rose is like, well, do you want me to bring it up with my dad? Like, if he's being weird? And Chris is like, no, it's fine. Like, he doesn't want to, like, get Walter in trouble or anything. This is when the whole extended family show up.
Yes.
I love this scene, this whole sequence. It's this montage of Chris being introduced to, like, each, like, sector of the family one by one, all these old white couples.
And
you first get the
every
golfers.
one of them has a microaggression.
Yeah, and it's just
like,
a montage of
lined up.
microaggressions. So
It's
you get the
wild.
golfers, the guy going, oh, I love Tiger Woods.
Yeah, the wife's like, well, he loves Tiger. The guy's like, yeah, I knew him. Can't move my hips like I used to, though.
Yeah.
Like, Chris, you ever get out and play? We can work on that swing.
See, they're all kind of like, and like this. Once you know like what happens, all these like questions they're asking them are so like
make more sense. Because then you get the
Oh,
lady, you get
that's
that
what
like,
they do.
the woman who's like feeling his muscles and being horny for him, and she's like objectifying him.
yeah. And she's
Oh.
like asking Rose like, is it true what they say about black
Is
guys?
it better with a black guy?
She's like vaguely Eastern European too. Like it's not like a regular like American accent.
Yeah,
I don't know if that makes
right.
it better or worse. And her husband's like, she's already trophy wife because like husband's like got like an oxygen tube in his nose.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And she's just like out here trying to like
A lot of
get in Chris's
old
pants.
people.
a lot of old people who are counting their days.
Well, then there's just the one guy who looks like Uncle Vernon, but not, and he's just like, you know, black is cool right now. Black's in fashion.
Black
Yeah.
is in fashion. The pendulum swings back and forth. And right now, black is in. And so Chris is just overwhelmed. He goes off on his own to take more pictures. And he notices another black guy in the mix.
And this is like the moment where I was like, for me, I was like, yep, I've been there.
Yeah,
Where it's
being
like-
like,
it's like-
where's the
like-
faggot?
Where
Oh
he's
my
like,
god.
because
There's
it's the
faggot.
first
Thank
moment
God.
this whole time where he's like relaxed. He's like,
Oh,
oh,
take a
thank
breath.
God, like
Literally.
somebody normal for
Yeah.
one, like somebody I can
Yeah.
talk
His
to.
Someone who I
whole
can chat
body
with.
language changes. Like his shoulders roll back. He's just like, okay, can breathe easy for a second.
And this guy is dressed like kind of a grandpa with a fedora. And
Like it's the 19 like
yeah,
20s.
1920s. And he turns around
30s.
and we see that it is Dre from the first scene.
Clean
Who got
shaven,
abducted.
haircut, hat on, just like
Dressed
down
like an
right
old
over
white
his
man.
brows.
Yeah, and acting like an old white man. He's like, pip pip cheerio. Like, he's just the
How do you do
corniest
that?
Ned Flanders-y kind of guy. Yeah.
I love mayonnaise.
I put mayonnaise in
Like
everything.
holding his like plate, napkin perfectly in his hand. It's like, oh, I do seem I've forgotten my manners.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, he's acting just
so
like Georgina
weird.
and Walter.
We learned his new name is Logan.
Logan
King.
And
Yeah.
he is together with some older white lady who's like twice his age.
Philomena.
And
I only remember
yeah.
that name because who the fuck calls their kid
Philomena.
Philomena?
It's like
What if there's like someone who listens to this pod named Philomena? She's
Sorry,
gonna be so
Philomena.
Hey,
pissed.
Philomena, if you're out there, we love you.
Yeah.
We respect you. we
Please
honor
keep
you.
listening.
Please change your name.
Please get a
Name
modern
changes
name.
are legal.
And Chris is like, okay, well, good talking to you. Tries to fist bump him. Logan returns it with a weird handshake, awkward white person handshake.
Just grabs the full fist and shakes it, and Chris just like,
What? He goes, he
Yeah,
literally says to
okay.
himself, he's like, what the fuck? Like, and then he goes off, he's like, oh my god. He goes to meet Jim. Jim is this blind guy who's like sitting off by himself, kind of in the garden. And he is like, oh, I recognize you. You are an art dealer. And Chris is a photographer.
Hudson
so-
Galleries, right?
Yeah, he's like Hudson Galleries. And he's like, yeah, and I recognize you. I'm a big fan of your work. You have a good eye. And they talk about how it's ironic, you know, he's a blind art dealer, but he has an assistant that describes the pieces in very good detail to him. And that's how he's been able to be such a prolific art dealer. And he's like, yeah, Chris, you're really talented. You have a good eye. He's also like, by the way, I'm sorry for how pretentious and like tone deaf my entire family is being right now.
While he's talking to Jim, the badminton in the background is going crazy.
Is it?
I think it's Jeremy and then somebody else. They're
It
just
has to be
playing
Jeremy.
badminton in the
I do
background.
like
Has to be
badminton.
Jeremy.
And I'm like, wow, that was just like some amazingly like, let's reinforce how white all of these people are. They're playing badminton
Right.
in the background.
I'm surprised it wasn't cornhole. And,
You have to call it bags now. You can't call it cornhole.
Oh, really?
At universities, I've learned you have to call it bags. They can't call it cornhole because it's a sex joke. It's inappropriate.
Oh.
Is it a sex joke?
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't think it's a thing, but no, it's
Ew.
ew. What does that mean?
Fascinating.
Thanks, Beavis and Butthead. I think that's where it comes from.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But yeah, it's cornhole.
Cornhole, yeah. Chris goes back inside and he heads upstairs. And all of the members of the family stop talking to each other and just like goes radio silent, and they all like look up and are like listening in and like wondering what he's doing.
It's
So
so weird.
It's
This is-
also the first like full inclination that like these people have a plan up their sleeves. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
if you
Like,
didn't know before,
Oh,
now you
oh,
fucking
like it's one of those where it's like, oh, I knew shit was going on, but now I definitely know that there's some
shit
weird
is
shit
going
going on.
on. Chris goes up and he sees that his phone has been taken off the charger, and he noticed it before.
For
like
the
the night
second
before.
time,
Yeah.
phone's unplugged.
His phone keeps getting unplugged, so it's not charging. He tells Rose that he suspects Georgina since he saw her cleaning in the other room. He plugs his phone back in and he calls Rod and tells him about all of the crazy shit, including the hypnosis. And Rod says,
Sex slaves! They're hypnotizing black people, turn them into sex slaves! Oh, did we acknowledge how much, like, before he calls Rod, how much he gets gaslight, gate-kept girl-bossed by Rose, who just, like, starts undermining everything that he says about, like, everyone's
right.
weird, I met this dude,
Yeah.
it was super weird talking to him, like, I swear I've seen him before, I don't know why, and she's like, well, that wouldn't make any sense, that's bizarre, and he's like, I think Georgina keeps unplugging my phone, and she's like, well,
Why would she do
why
that?
would she do that? What reason would she have to do it? He's like, it's just weird.
and he's
Weird.
like, maybe she's like jealous that you're with me or something
Well,
like that.
he's already also mentioned to her that he's been hypnotized, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
And a moment of that I noticed is she wasn't like, she just kind of was casual about it. It was like, when?
She goes,
Yeah.
Oh, when?
Oh my god, I hate that she did that. Oh no.
Yeah, just like, no.
But not
she's
like,
always
I
doing
can't
that.
believe. Because, like, you know, you'd think,
You think she'd be like, oh my god.
what the fuck? Like, why,
She's just
why
like,
did she do that? Like, you know, but she was just like, oh, when? Which is kind of when her switch up kind of starts to happen.
Weird. It's weird.
But yeah, Rod is like, you need to get the fuck out. And then we get an iconic scene. Georgina appears suddenly. And she apologizes for unplugging his phone, saying, oh, it was just an accident. I had to remove the phone off the charger. It accidentally came off because I had to lift it up so I could clean underneath it. I wasn't trying to do you any harm. And he's like, it's okay. Like, I wasn't trying to snitch on you. And she goes, snitch? And he's like,
Rat you out.
Rat you out. And she's like, oh, tattletale. I'm not all caught up on these modern terms. And he's like, it's okay. All I know is, sometimes if there's too many white people, I get nervous, Then she gives my favorite scene. She goes,
Oh, no. 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 No, 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 no.
no, 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 no.
No, 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 no,
No.
no, 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 no.
No, no. There's even a moment where she's like, wait, no? No.
No.
And the tears are coming out of her. It's like, this became a viral meme. Like, this, I've seen this be used as a reaction meme a lot.
Yeah.
Her acting is so fucking good. Like, you can tell, like, she
Something
wants to say something else,
so
but she's, like, been brainwashed. And
It's also like she's talking to somebody else. Like, it
Yeah.
sounds kind of like the no's are like, it's almost like there's two people talking like to each other. Like, no, like someone's telling you no. Like, whatever's happening is not going to happen.
It's equally campy and hilarious and fucking terrifying.
Oh, sinister.
You're like,
It's
oh my god, especially when she
so
starts
weird.
crying, yeah.
Jordan Peele has this thing that he does in this movie and in Us. I cannot remember if it happens in Nope or not, just because I need to rewatch. But it's this thing where a character will go, like, not talking, like, from, like, smiling and, like, happy, and, like, descend through every emotion until they're, like, frowning, like, distraught, like, upset about something. Because we see Georgina have this moment here, and then we see Elizabeth Moss's character have the same thing in Us. Sitting at the vanity mirror.
Oh, yes, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, yeah.
And it's such a cool shot, and like how he keeps finding these people that can pull it, because that's not easy to pull off.
It's
Like,
an
that's
incredible
impossible.
range in like 30 seconds
Yeah.
of screen time.
Oh, it's
yeah.
so cool.
Such a great scene. He literally, she like leaves and Chris says to himself, this bitch is crazy. When he goes back outside, he is confronted by the dad and a new group of family members. We actually see one of them is Asian, and he asks Chris if he feels that black people are at a disadvantage in society or if they are advantage. And he's just like exhausted. He sees Logan, thank God. And he's like, hey, how about you answer this one, Logan? Passes it off to him. Logan goes, the black experience for me has just been wonderful. No complaints. Which said no black person ever.
Correct. Oh, they always say, I want to acknowledge this, they always say African American. All
Right,
of the
they
white
don't say
people
black,
and that
yeah.
Asian men are all very specific to say African American. Which, let me be clear about something. I'm not African. I do not have an African parent. I do not have African grandparents. I don't call myself African American. I call myself black.
Yeah.
Right.
I have
exactly.
a friend who's Nigerian. His parents immigrated here in the 90s. He's African American.
Yes.
He's African parents who moved here. He was born here. That's African American.
Yes.
None of the, I think Daniel Kaluuya is British. He may be, I don't know how they would identify themselves, like by, I don't know.
I mean, because
by
that's
country
the
over
thing.
there.
It's also making this assumption that all black people are also American.
Yeah, and that you can't, say black.
It's like saying like
Just
say
say black.
African British
Yeah.
person. Like that's not a thing.
Yeah. I'm an Afro-Brit. Like, okay, cool.
Right.
I mean,
Or
like,
you're just black.
yeah.
Who knows? Anyway, I just think that's super weird because the Asian guy asks the same way, and then you get Lakeith Stanford as Andre, now as Logan King, saying, yeah, I found the African American experience to be,
Just dandy.
just delightful.
Yeah. And so Chris is literally like,
What the fuck?
oh
is this
my
dude talking
god. And he's like, I gotta take a picture of him and send it to Rod. See if Rod knows this guy. So he takes a picture, doesn't realize his flash is on. And
We've all been
Logan starts to get like freaked the fuck out. He goes into this weird, like he just woke up from a trance and his nose starts bleeding, and I don't know if they put like contacts in his eyes or something to make them look kind of like they're glazed
dilated.
over
Yeah,
or
his
something,
pupils
or
dilate super big.
Yeah, that's what it is. He starts screaming, get out, get the fuck out to Chris, and kind of like grabs the scruff of his neck and is like, you need to get out, you need to get out. The family all start to like pull Logan off of him.
And he has such a big voice switch. Like, he's not
Yeah,
Logan
he's not
King
just, like-
anymore.
He's Andre from the first scene.
Yeah.
Before he
yeah.
got abducted, yeah. And he has to be pulled away, and they take him to the mom's office. Obviously, we know her ass is just hypnotizing him into
So,
like going back into the train.
That's where we've kind of at this point realized,
Yeah, these people are hypnotized. They're being like
hypnotized.
brainwashed. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically. And the dad is trying to explain to Chris, like, oh, this was just a seizure. It was a seizure triggered by the flash. And Chris is like, well, no, because my cousin has epilepsy and I've seen seizures before. And that's not
It's
the
I
focus.
think that's later when he's talking to Rose.
Right, but that's like what he's probably thinking.
Yeah,
to
you see him
himself,
like
yeah.
he like raises an eyebrow.
It's kinda like, yeah, not buying it. Chris and Rose go for a walk, and he's expressing all his concerns to her.
Well, also, something I noticed. She's the one who says we're gonna go for a walk. She's the one.
Oh,
who
yeah.
initiates
Yeah,
Right,
she
right, that's
initiates that. Also, just because it's super cute. Did you notice that their outfits are the American flag?
No.
He's got on a like bright blue denim, and
yeah.
she's got on like
Red and white stripes.
Gray. Well, it's gray and white stripes, but he's wearing gray, so it's like just off. But the way that they're like positioned in a lot of the shots, he's always like, as we're seeing it, on the left, and she's on the right, so it looks like the American flag just a little bit.
Yeah, and is she wearing the red?
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's also can be seen as an allegory to Republican Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had not even thought about that one.
No.
There you go.
I just thought of it now.
Perfect.
Boom.
You're so smart, Parker.
My mind. I have the mind of a fucking master. What's that? I don't know. Anyway, I'm so creative like that.
I have the mind of a master. I have the mind of a mastermind. What's that? I don't know, but I'm so creative like that.
Yeah, they go on this walk, and he tells Rose that he just like wants to leave. He's freaked out. He also says when Logan went into his trance, that's when I realized I know him from somewhere. I recognize him. Like, he's not, when he's in his Logan persona, that's not who he is. And that freaks me out, and I think we should leave.
Yep.
Meanwhile, we cut back to the family. They are playing bingo, but it is not actually a bingo game. It is a silent auction disguised as a bingo game, wherein they are bidding on Chris. Because we see his portrait and Dean is standing in front of it, like auctioning off Chris to these fucking
They're
people.
using like the bingo cards as like the call cards
As the
for
call
the
cards.
auctions.
Yeah.
It's like weirdly both a silent auction, but also like a regular auction. He's just only using hand signals instead of like talking.
Yeah. Back on their walk, Chris tells Rose the details about his mom's death and opens up to her about how he's still dealing with the grief. He feels like he could have, I don't know, maybe saved her because she was apparently like suffering like for a long time before she actually died, just laying there on the side of the road. And if he had maybe called, someone could have gotten to her early and something could have happened. And so he feels that guilt still. And he says, I'm not going to leave without you, Rose. I won't abandon the person I love ever again. And she says, you know what? Let's fucking go. Like, you're right. This sucks. I love you. And I don't want to see you uncomfortable anymore. Like, let's just fucking get out. And he says that he loves her. And they kiss again. And okay, she's cool with it. They're just gonna go. Thank God, right? They head back to the house. He calls Rod. Rod tells him that they do in fact know Logan. But his name is actually Dre. And he used to date a mutual friend of theirs. And he's like, I knew that's how I knew him from.
Oh, they do this like classic black people thing of like, she's the cousin of the, girl
It's my
whose
barber's
ex worked at
uncle's
the
ex's friends'
worked at the movie theater on
That's
eight.
her.
That's
Yeah.
her. Yeah,
That's
who worked at the
her.
movie theater. Yeah.
I know her.
I knew that's how I knew where she was from.
Yes.
And
It's amazing.
Rod is like, sex slave, sex
Sex slave.
slave. He's so sold on this conspiracy.
Which, like, Yeah.
Yeah,
Kind of.
After Chris got like felt up like that, got the whole bicep and forearm squeeze. Ooh, absolutely.
You knew when she was looking,
Got
when
this
she
old
was
lady
at the
talking about a
auction.
schlong. Ooh.
But in that moment, Chris's phone dies. Fuck. Rose comes in, and Chris is like, we've got to get the fuck out. Like, we've got to get the fuck out. Rose goes, okay, I understand. Look, let me just go get my bag really quick. Chris is waiting for her, and he notices that there's like this little
Closet door.
tiny little closet door that swings open in her room.
It's open. It's open for the first
It
time.
is
It's been
open.
closed through the rest of the film.
Right. And he's curious. He goes in. He finds a box of pictures. And it is photos depicting Rose with all these other black partners that she's had.
Including
Georgina!
lesbian queen.
Yes! Happy Pride to Georgina!
Happy
Pride
Pride
to
to
Georgina.
everyone. Happy Pride to Georgina. Give it up for Georgina.
Pride, happy Juneteenth, happy
Wow,
weird
it's
shit.
her month. It's
Georgina's
Georgina's month.
month, bitch. So yeah, this is when we know, oh, Rose is a fucking liar if we hadn't caught on to that before. I'm pretty sure Walter is depicted in one of those photos.
Walter's
Yes.
one of those photos. He's got a little mustache.
Yeah.
With a
And a
mustache.
do-rag
yeah.
on. It's like, okay,
Uh-huh.
that's Walter. Okay.
And there's a lot of
So many.
Photos.
There's like probably 50 photos.
which just kind of makes you like, first of all, how quick is she working?
Right. Well, apparently she doesn't take a fucking break, because we'll see later, because she was already, you know.
She was already searching.
But I also thought this was interesting. Some of the photos are of Rose being in theater, and like some of her, I guess she was an actress or did like community theater or something, which makes sense. Because that's how she's so good at lying and so good at being a master manipulator.
Jordan Peele has said the reason he cast Allison Williams for this role, and part of the reason she wanted to do it, was because of her experience doing Peter Pan, and then again in Girls, she would subvert like the audience. She'd become immediately somebody that like the audience wouldn't suspect. They'd be like, "Oh, that's Peter Pan," or, you know, that's Allison Williams from Peter Pan, and from like, "Oh, we love her. She's great."
Yeah,
like she'd get so much positive will before anything could happen that she was she would never be a suspect over the course.
She
of
wouldn't
the
be a
movie.
villain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great casting there.
It's like Emma Roberts a little bit in Scream 4.
Absolutely, yes.
Whereas,
Like,
like-
oh, we've only ever seen her play like the
Nancy
ingenue.
Drew, I'm fabulous.
Yeah. And she comes back in and she just can't find her keys. And Chris just knows he can't trust her at this point. He's like, okay, the jig is up. He goes downstairs and he's continuing with the whole like, okay, Rose, just find your keys. Come
Just
on, let's
give me
go.
them
We
keys.
gotta go. Just give me them keys, Rose. When he goes downstairs, he's cornered by the other members of her family who are all like just kind of waiting there. Jeremy is holding that lacrosse. What's
The
they call
lacrosse
it?
stick. He's getting pushed into one room by Jeremy. He's got
Dean's
another
like
room
evilly
sealed off.
monologuing in front of the fire. Like, it's so dramatic. You can see like the reflection of the flames of the fire in his glasses, and he's like, "What is your purpose?" Like going on like this weird existential monologue.
It's like, to get out of this house
to
right
get out
now.
of this
Yeah,
house.
motherfucker to leave.
"Where are the keys, Rose? Where are the keys?" She holds the keys up, babe. You know I can't give you
Oh,
these keys.
her
Switches
turn.
up. And her bangs are parted to the side, so she's no longer hip and relatable.
Yeah,
She got rid of the bangs.
She
longer
got rid of
Jess.
her bangs.
Oh, man.
And
that turn is one of the all-time great turns I've seen in any movie. Just like she's like crying, she's distressed, and then like sobers up. Babe,
you know I can't give you these keys. It was very Anne Hathaway as Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises. Oh my god! Oops. Yeah, that good switch up. And the mom taps her teaspoon, sends him to the sunken place, and he sees Rose up in there, and she goes, "You are one of my favorites, Chris."
oh, it's so creepy. It's so gross. Ew. We finally get another dot connected because we hear them talk about how Rose's method is so effective, and Jeremy's method is so brutish. Like, it's so much hardcore.
And that's another...
And he's like, I wasn't gonna hurt the guy. And she's like, well, you almost damaged him earlier. But when they add that up, it kind of, you're finally able to connect the dots of, oh, Jeremy
is
saw his method.
the
He abducted
masked
Andre.
assailant who had abducted
Yeah.
Andre.
And that
Yeah.
other giveaway was when he tried to put him in a headlock.
And
Yep.
And Rose brings it up. She's like, I can't believe my brother tried to put you in a headlock. What the fuck is that
and
about?
that I wonder if the helmet thing, what you were saying about the masked assailant's helmet, is that it's very kind of night-like or
Like the
nightish.
Crusaders.
It reminded me.
It's the Crusaders.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is a symbolism of white supremacy now.
Yeah, it reminds.
Yeah.
I think the first scene is a literal parallel. I think to, like, the original abduction of black people, where he just gets him and throws him in the trunk, basically,
Yeah.
which is like in no way different than abducting black people and throwing them on a boat.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Bringing them somewhere and
my
just
God.
taking them somewhere miles and miles and miles away.
That
Yeah.
just blew my mind. That is so true. Yeah, absolutely. That has to be what he meant to do there. So yeah, Jeremy is the one who goes out and just abducts. But yeah, Rose likes to seduce. So she seduced Georgina, she seduced Walter, all these people. Yeah. So, we cut back to Rod, who's at the airport where he works, the TSA. He's trying to get a hold of Chris. He goes to Chris's apartment and he feeds Chris's dog because, he's dog sitting for Chris. While waiting on the dog, he searches up Dre on Google and he discovers Dre has been missing for months. So Rod's freaking out.
It's like 6 months, right?
We cut back to Chris, who wakes up from his hypnotic state. He is strapped to a leather chair in the basement. So this is what's been down the basement the whole time. A TV, like an old retro TV set in front of him, starts playing a video, and we see Rose's grandpa, Old Man Armitage. And he is on this tape explaining to Chris that Chris has been chosen for his genetic makeup and physicality to be a part of this procedure called the coagula. And we see that he's with the whole family. Like, it's Dean and Rose when she was little, and Jeremy when he was little, and Missy, and they're all there.
The photo of that image is, we see it
Saw
earlier
in the
on the
house,
wall
on the-
when we get shown the Jesse
that's
Owens
right.
picture.
That's right.
Worth pointing out again, we get another kind of example of like perfect symmetry where Chris is sitting in the room. The only thing that's not perfectly lined up with the mirror on either side is that the foosball table is off to one side, but otherwise it's like perfectly in the middle of the ping pong table. There's the lamps, the way the chair is set up, everything, and it's the same when he faces the TV.
Yeah.
And that TV screen reminds me so much of like what that little window looks like when he's in the sunken place.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Almost as if like she modeled the sunken place a little bit after it, because it is so perfectly like lines up with it for sure. But then on the TV, a video of the teaspoon and the teacup show back up. Clang, he gets pulled back into the sunken place. Then we cut back to Rod again. Rod goes to the police station and is talking to this female black detective who is just not taking his ass seriously because he keeps bringing up the sex slaves. And this character cracks me the fuck up. Like, Stevie and I were talking about this character before you got here. And the fact that she, like, listens to his whole story and then she's like, hold on, let me go get my, like, fellow detectives.
Wait here a minute.
Yeah.
And they're so serious and listen to his whole story again. And then when they just start laughing
They're
at
busting out loud.
she's like, don't you ever say I don't do nothing
I don't
for
do
y'all.
nothing for y'all.
And you could tell he told a bigger version of the story this time. He's like, I'm TSA, and I'm like I know y'all cops are like, TSA.
Yeah, I think we know a little bit more than y'all do sometimes
Dude,
about
that's
certain
the
things. You
thing.
know what I mean?
I love how he keeps like bragging about TSA the whole time, and I'm like, I'm sorry. With my experiences, I think TSA they fucking hate their job.
Yeah,
they're probably the most.
I love that he takes pride in TSA.
They're probably the most miserable fucking people.
They're always so fucking mad.
They're mad at me. I just got here. Like, why are you mad
I'm
at
just trying to
me?
get on my plane. Leave me alone.
Hey, shoes off. I'm like, okay, like, how the fuck was I supposed to know?
I just got here.
But, like, I would probably have the same exact attitude if I fucking worked for TSA, I swear to God. So, yeah, Rod goes back to Chris's house, and he's like, I guess I'll have to take this investigation into my own hands. And he calls Chris again. Rose answers. And she's all like, Chris? Like, oh my God, like, I've been wondering where you were, da-da-da-da-da. And he's like, no, it's me, Rod. This is where we see, it cuts back to Rose in person.
And
she's in her final form.
She is straight-faced the whole time talking, but like acting so worried.
Oh my God.
So
I can't believe it.
Tight.
Yeah, she's got again, no bangs, so she's no longer hip and relatable. She's got her white turtleneck on, and she looks like a psychopath. And blank face. Like, she literally was like, Bat's eyelashes, blank stare. When she was on the phone with him, even though she's like crying in her voice.
Blink, breathe, blink.
You know, that's her inner monologue, for sure.
Showing off those acting chops again. She's got all this emotion in her voice, but he gets fed up. He's like, oh, wait, like, he's like, I gotta catch her in this. So he like asks her to hold on for a second and like mutes her.
And he goes, this bitch is lying!
This bitch is lying through her teeth.
Love the way he talks to himself. It's very relatable, to be honest. He then puts her back on and is recording her. And she starts playing the whole like, listen, Rod, I know you want to fuck me. And is like being all weird now.
He is like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Fuck? And he like hangs up on her. And
I love this part because he's like, she's an
evil
genius.
Chris wakes back up again. And he is on a video call now with the blind guy, Jim, who explains to him the coagula procedure. Part of his brain is going to be replaced with Jim's brain. So Jim can basically live inside of Chris's body, and Chris will become like a literal slave in his own body.
I think he says your existence would be as a passenger. We need to keep we have to keep your nervous system intact, so there'll always be a little piece of you, but like I'll be driving.
And you'll forever live, and Chris knows, he says, in the sunken place. And he starts crying again, like, fuck, because the sunken place fucking sucks.
And then this is now, so we know, oh shit, these people haven't been hypnotized.
They're
literally like been like
brain transplanted.
Yeah. So it's like, that's why we know, like, oh, the old woman was that young black man, because that's her fucking husband.
Yeah.
I
had this whole...
And these...
Go ahead.
The people were all, like, asking all these questions about his athleticism or, like, his body, because they want to know, like, ooh, are you a good fit? Do I want to bid on you? Mm-hmm. Are you who I want?
It's almost like they're like clothes shopping.
Exactly. It's so it's just like it just adds to all this creepiness of like the whole like, oh, you people are fucking insane. They're like, window shopping him basically.
Yeah. And Chris asked Jim, he says, can I ask you why black people? And Jim says, listen, honestly, my other family members typically go for black people because of their like physicality or what have you. I honestly don't give a fuck about your skin color. I want your eye. I want those things you see out of. Which was so creepy too, because the camera footage quality on the TV he's watching is really grainy, and Jim just looks so scary when he says that. It gave me fucking chills. I was like, disgusting.
I think that goes back to with the grandpa when he lost the preliminaries or whatever they're called for the Olympics.
Owens, yeah.
And so that was forever for him. He was always like, I lost because because there's this racist stereotype that black people are more physically adept or whatever it is, which was just a point of also racism, because people still try to bring that up of like, oh, black people are so much better at sports, and it's like that's a racist stereotype, and also that racist stereotype was used for segregation, to push for like segregation. And so it's like people think it's like one of those, I think this is why this whole film I really love, because you could have easily gone for just like the very on the nose racism, but it's like, no, it goes from this liberal racism again of like people thinking, oh, I'm so I'm anti-racist, but it's like it's so anti-racist that it becomes, it's so racist,
just plain racist.
It's so crazy to watch that scene and have him just be like, I'm just like focused on your eyes. You know, when he's talking about like your existence as a passenger, you know, the thought that kind of sat with me is like, well, that's like the black experience. Like, you're there watching white people make decisions for the world, and I just like, you just have to live in them. Like, that's the experience of black people. That's the experience of people of color. That's like, you know, from a like, the queer lens, it's like, okay, a bunch of old, straight repressed
people
Christian white
telling
dudes
me
are going to
how to
write
live my life.
things that
Absolutely,
dictate who I can marry, and if I can even, like, safely partner somebody or go into these spaces. It's like, we're just, like, watching as other people make decisions for us, and this is, like, the literal version of that.
Yeah.
Another worth pointing out, there's all this conversation around, like, people becoming perfect. Like, Dr. Armitage Dean says that, like, we're the gods trapped in shells, and how do we become perfect? And the Roman Armitage is like so focused on perfection. Like, okay, well, if I were the racer that I am in a black body, when they have that shot during, like, the discussion of the coagula and the moth is coming out of the chrysalis, if either of you know what the golden rectangle looks like, the golden ratio, it's kind of like that rectangle with, like, the spiral that slowly gets bigger.
The Fibonacci sequence?
Yeah, it's connected to the Fibonacci sequence. That's like the mathematical expression of it. That the way that the moth blooms from the chrysalis, like, lines up for a quick second with the golden ratio, and I think that's so much on purpose. Like, everything in this house is laid out. The reason we get these shots of, like, perfect symmetry with just one thing, like, off to the side, it's to be that ratio
and to achieve perfection.
Yeah,
like this desire to do that.
Mind fucking blown, Charlie.
It's crazy. So, like, that's what Jim's whole thing is, like, you could have been black, you could be Asian, I don't care. The thing I didn't have that I was not perfect for me was your eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That shot is really gross. Parker was right.
It's
the,
so
like, grainy.
Yeah.
Grainy. I
Well,
want your
he
eyes,
has those, like,
man.
glass.
I want
like,
those
the
things
way
you
the
see.
blind eyes look for some people, where it's like that, like, white over, like, kind of creepy look. So then with that old television grainy effect, it's just even weirder.
Yeah, it made me, like, sick to my stomach watching that whole scene. Yeah.
The heebie-jeebies.
Chris then notices that he has been anxiously scratching that leather chair, and there's some cotton stuffing poking out of it. Then we cut to the dad, Dean, in the other room starting to perform the procedure on Jim. And he cuts his scalp open, and he sends
it into a trash can.
Yeah, he just flops it in the trash can. Then he sends Jeremy to go fetch Chris, who seemingly has been hypnosedated again. But then Chris pops up and he bops Jeremy on the back of the head with a croquet ball. Which I love that it was a croquet ball, because croquet has always been seen as, like, a symbol of privilege. Like, royalty always played croquet and all that stuff. So
we were out on the lawn playing croquet ahead of our, midsummer celebration.
Exactly. So I love that he uses that symbol of privilege to bop Jeremy.
Oh, if y'all...
And this is so... What I love about the last, like, 15, 20 minutes of this movie is you just see everyone get what they fucking
Yeah, it feels so satisfying to watch them bop Jeremy.
Satisfying. Because this is a movie where, first of all, it's an hour and 45 minutes. Thank you, Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
Because I love
this podcast will be longer than the actual movie.
This podcast is
because
literally
there's
longer.
So much to take from it.
This podcast is literally longer than the fucking movie. But even though, like, there's not a lot of the horror aspects happening early on in the movie, like, it kind of, like, or I guess, like, like I said earlier,
it's a slow build up. Yeah,
it's a slow build up. The whole film kind of keeps you, like, still on your toes of, like, what the fuck is going on? Like, you want to know, so it keeps you interested.
And we see that Chris literally picked cotton. I don't know if you guys, like, put that together, but he literally picked the cotton from the chair, used it as earplugs, stuffed his ears so that he wouldn't hear the clang of the teacup and he wouldn't get hypnotized. So he faked out Jeremy.
So he threw on his acting skills.
So I love that, again, it's a black man, like, inverting, like, what has been used to, like, oppress black people, like, to save himself from a situation, and then he uses a symbol of privilege to kill his
There's
oppressor.
another good moment of symbolism. So there's a deer head that they've been showing throughout while he's in the room that's been hung on the wall, and it has giant antlers, and so he looks at that, and then we cut back to the dad working on the surgery, and he's like,
Jeremy,
where the fuck is Chris? Like, let's go.
Oh, yeah, he's now throwing, like, the skull down in there, too.
Oh, yeah. This is
it's
good
so
gore.
gross.
Good gore. I
He goes
appreciate good gore.
Like, he goes in the hallway and, like...
Oh
No
no,
one's there.
he's lifted the... Is it that he's lifted part of the brain out? I think he dumps part of the brain out. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so gross.
Yeah.
And you get the shot down the hallway, super Shining reference. Just like anytime we got a long hallway, kind of warmly, but like with like dark patches lit, it's like, oh, that's the Shining. Which reminds me, wait, earlier, when they're at the airport, you hear an announcement for flight 237, which is the
Room 237!
Yes.
Good call, Charlie. Yes.
Anyway, sorry, there's my 2 Shining callbacks for the film. But we're looking down this hallway, and he like looks, and he's like, "Where's?"
And then he turns
my
around,
son.
and then he turns
Boom,
back, and
gets jump scared by
Chris
Chris.
stabs him with the deer, which is a callback to
taxidermy
him
deer.
saying like, "I don't care about deer. Good riddance to them. I'm glad they're dead." So this is kind of now now you're getting killed by the thing
Which is
that
funny
you
because I
hate.
bet Dean probably like went hunting and like killed that deer himself.
Yeah.
So like the irony of like that deer being like caused his death.
Yeah.
Dean then stumbles into the room.
And knocks over a candle.
So
And if you watch it closely, it looks like he like trips and like he's trying to catch himself on it. I think that he knocked it over on purpose.
I thought so too.
I think
get
that
rid
he
of
like
burn the
stumbles
evidence.
and burns and like knocks it down with his arm.
to get rid of the evidence.
Yeah, he probably
that's what I
did.
thought so
Yeah.
too.
Regardless,
that's-
you see a
yeah.
fire start.
Because he's
a
like,
fire.
well, I'm not going to last it without me. This whole gig is up. So
Yeah.
he's like, well, everyone else is.
There's a long hallway and there's photos of all of these people, and you get this idea like, oh, this goes not even just as deep as all of the people here for the party. This is
even more.
This is something that's been going on.
It's a whole. It's kind of like a cold kind of.
Yeah.
So Chris runs upstairs and he encounters the mom who starts running to her teacup. Thankfully, Chris gets to the teacup before she does and
He
smashes
just pushes off the table and it just shatters.
So she finds a knife and they have a knife showdown and then he overpowers her.
And
He
stabs
stabs
her.
it through his hand.
And he just
pushes
still
it back
like
into her.
overpowers her, and
Still
she's
is
like,
able to-
shit. She can like tell. She's like,
Do you know what's crazy about that shot? She doesn't scream. She doesn't like yell. They just like have this altercation, and I can't tell if it's because it's like the remorse of I've been caught, so who am I gonna scream for?
Yeah.
Or if it's the, well, if you're up here, there's no way that you would be up here if my husband and my son were like still able to like do stuff.
Yeah.
So again, like, what's the point in me screaming? I can't
Yeah.
tell which it is, but like the one of I think the idea of her like being like, I mean, well, I did this and I'm found out, so like there's no point.
yeah.
It like is like a little more sinister.
I
to
mean,
me.
yeah. I think it's just a moment where she was like, oh fuck.
Yeah. But it's crazy. Yeah, it's like that whole like knife through the hand, pushes it back. It's
And then he uses her own knife to kill her.
Stabs her
in the throat. Yeah. He's about to finally leave. Jeremy pops up, jump scares him, and they have another fucking showdown.
Jeremy, I hate you. I hate
That
Jeremy.
he overpowers him and he just kicks in his fucking skull, and it's very satisfying.
So satisfying.
Did you get the call back in there? This I say this. We're all doing it because this film is so full of them. Because Jordan Peele's the answer.
Did he say?
No. Every time he goes to open the door, Jeremy kicks it closed. So you see him get it like hand on it like once really fast, opens it, boom, door's closed. Gets his hand on again, opens it. Jeremy like shoves it closed with his like free hand. So then he like
too.
Yeah, so he's like, okay, we get some of that. He uses Jeremy's own jujitsu brain against him. He's like, all right, I'm gonna go to open the door one more time. And as Jeremy kicks the door closed, he grabs the scissors and stabs him. Because he's like, he puts that together, puts that pattern together. I'm like, oh, that is so good.
He makes sure to be 5 steps ahead of him.
And then
Jeremy's
right,
going to be 4
and he
steps.
just stomps the shit out of
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's nice and brutal. Meanwhile, Rose is sitting upstairs. The scene was so camp.
like a goddamn
And
psychopath.
she is on Google Images looking
She's on
at
Bing!
She's on Bing.com,
Bing!
which I literally noted. Bing.com. That is the whitest thing she's
Bing
done this
on a
whole
Microsoft
movie.
Surface, hair pulled back so tight, off-brand, like
Not Bing.
Bing.
thought
She
she
just
was
types in NCAA
Prospects. And she's like literally window shopping for like her new black boyfriend. This shit is so funny.
She was
And
like, okay, time to get to
she's
work.
eating Fruit Loops, but has separated the milk, the white milk, from the colored cereal.
Loops.
Okay, except Jordan Peele has talked about this Okay, so everyone thinks it's supposed to be like, oh, white
The whites and the
separate
colors
from
are
He was like,
separated.
okay, I thought it was... He's like, I'm glad everyone saw it that way. He was like, I did it just because I thought it was weird.
Yeah,
It is
don't
weird.
the weirdos eat their cereal and then like drink their
She drinks
milk.
the milk with a straw.
Oh,
What
she's
the
such a
fuck?
freak.
Oh, she's
God.
a fucking freak. And she's listening to I've had the time of my life.
So it's like, it's so...
fucking
funny. Did you see? She's like
so funny.
perfectly cross-legged. She's put all of the
Does it-
photos back up on the wall behind her of all the previous partners too.
Yeah, she doesn't waste any time. She is already planning for the next one. Chris gets the keys from Jeremy and he starts to get away in that white car that Jeremy was using to
Sees the
kidnap
helmet
people.
in the
And it's, yeah, it's the white car. So that's another how you're like, oh,
Confirmation
yeah,
that Jeremy was the masked
And then the helmet
assailant.
is in the car.
He starts to call the police because he gets his phone back finally, but Georgina throws herself in front of the car. Diva down!
Diva down! And he sees her, he's like, he
He's there
feels
laying there.
bad.
He gets triggered because it reminds him of his mom during the hit and run. So he's like picking up Georgina, thinking maybe he can somehow save her, and puts her in the passenger seat. Mm-hmm. Rose comes out because she heard like the collision, and she goes, "Grandma." So that's when we know, oh, Georgina is her grandma. Like, that's been swapped out with her brain. It's so funny. Rose gets her shotgun.
Yep.
And she's going to go out to pursue Chris. Georgina wakes up in the
I think it's
passenger
actually
seat.
a hunting rifle, which would make sense with the deer.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
But it's like an old ass hunting rifle. Like this thing is not modern.
Right. Maybe it's from like the Civil War area or something. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. So Georgina wakes up in the passenger seat and she starts going, "You ruined my house!" And we can see her scar is
lobotomy
visible
scar.
from the
Which is why
lobotomy.
she wears a wig.
Yep, which is why she
And
wears
that
her
tells
good
you
wig.
why Logan Dre has a hat on, why Walter wears his hat
Yeah.
so far down.
It's
like
to
everyone's
cover
gotta
up.
hide the scars.
Those
Cover up those
big ass
scars.
scars right in the middle of your forehead. Mm-hmm. And she causes him to crash into a tree, which kills Georgina on impact.
Diva down.
Diva down.
Diva down.
Damn. Rose comes out with the rifle, and she's kind of chasing after Chris, and then she goes, "Get him, Grandpa!" And we see Walter start chasing him.
Yeah, Chris has gotten out of the car. She's blown the window off, which is the same, or the mirror off, which I think is the same mirror that the deer knocks off,
Uh-huh.
or maybe it's the opposite mirror. I don't know. Knocks off one of the car
but
mirrors.
it's one of the.
So he's like limping down the street, covered in blood, and you just hear, "Get him, Grandpa!" And then Walter takes off out the front door.
So Walter was her grandpa, and they have a showdown, but then Chris gets out his camera flash and causes Walter to get hypnotized.
It like freaks him out.
And he pretends to still be brainwashed, has Rose hand him the gun, then he shoots Rose in the stomach. Fuck yes.
Guts her.
But then, this was sad, kinda. Walter kills himself with the gun.
But then it's also, you're kind of like, you can assume then that like...
Oh, he was
even
suffering. I mean, he's
the
been trapped in a
flash,
sunken
like,
place.
yeah, it takes them out of that trance, but how much does it take them out? Probably
Yeah.
is enough to like...
Just for probably
He's
a
like,
few
I don't
minutes.
have. I've got.
I don't know how
moments
much
to
time
do
I have
this.
left. I'm not going back though.
Yep.
Yep. Then we see that Rose is still alive. And he starts to strangle her. He's so mad. But he can't bring himself to actually do it.
And she kind of like starts to then be like, "Oh, I love you," like...
No,
Yeah,
she
she's
smiles at him first when he's strangling her.
Yeah.
It's
She's
so
like got
scary.
this like creepy smile
Yeah.
on, and it's like this smarmy kind of like, that's right. I've seen interpretations that are like, be everything that we really think you are. You know, like you're in the casual in this full like, yeah, we do think black people are like inferior. Be the angry black man.
And
kill
that's
me.
why he like holds back and ultimately
Sorry.
bless you, decides not to choke her.
Mm-hmm.
But then we
Red
see the
balloon.
cops show
Watch, and she switches so quickly.
Help
she
me.
backs up
to
a
be
little
like,
bit.
Help me, help me.
And the
she
first
starts
time-
to play the victim.
The first time that I watched this movie, I was in theaters, and I remember everyone was like, "Oh, fuck." Like,
Yep.
that moment is truly the scariest part of the movie because it just is too
Because
real.
while you think
it's
like, oh my god,
Jesus
is this
Christ.
he got
is
out?
Is this how
and-
this
but did
movie's
he
gonna
actually-
end? But it's wrong.
Because the door opens and it says
airport
security.
security.
It's like, oh my god, TSA.
And Jordan Peele said that, yeah, originally he did want Chris to, like, get arrested and then, like, frame him for killing this whole white family, because he's literally choking out this white girl when they find him.
Yep.
But then he was like, you know what, even though that would probably be the more poignant ending, at the end of the day, like, a movie, the best movies make you feel good. And you still want your main character to succeed at the end. You don't want it to be too bleak.
Yep.
So having it be Rod show up to save him is the perfect ending.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think you kind of get the best of, let's reference our Queen Hannah Montana here. You kind of get the best of both worlds.
Yes.
And, like, because your heart drops.
Yes.
All the way
it's
out
that,
your asshole.
Oh, no.
And then it's
you're like,
it's right. You're like, oh, I'm back up. But thank God, because we can all do that fast forwarding where it's like, oh, he's gonna go to jail, or worse, they're just gonna kill him right here.
They'll just shoot him. It'll be the end of Night of the Living Dead again. But thankfully, it's Rod. And Chris says, how did you find me? And he says, I'm T.S.
Motherfucking A.
We handle shit. Consider the shit handled. And Chris looks back at Rose sitting there. She's, suffering. It's very reminiscent of when his mom was dying. But guess what?
This is the time he finally
Chris
walks
says,
away.
you know what? I'm walking away. And he leaves Rose for dead on the street. And him and Rod escape in the TSA car. And the end. And
The
that
end.
is Get
So
Out.
now we can go back to that one scene where he asks for his ID.
Yes.
Because the reason she's so much like, no, don't give me your ID. She doesn't want
A paper trail.
She doesn't want a paper
Yeah,
trail.
she didn't want the cop to maybe recognize or remember his name
Yeah.
when he eventually
If he
would go
went
missing.
missing.
Because if, like, that's recorded in something that can be looked up, that entire scene later with the cops changes where Rod is talking to him. Because he can be like, just look up my friend. He's been missing. Look up Chris Washington. Because she can look him up and be like, oh, well, he was recorded here the other day. And, Rod can be like, oh, yeah, well, that was where he was going. It's now, he was supposed to be back a day ago. I haven't heard from him, and his phone's going straight to voicemail, or this, like, weird white bitch picked up. What's going, like, something bad's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a lot of details.
There's so many things. We probably didn't even touch on maybe like 10% of all of the secret things, I'm sure, because this is just one of those movies. And yes, this has been a long pod. We're over 2 hours. But I think that the longest pods of ours have always been the most interesting movies.
Yeah.
Because when a movie gives you a lot to talk about, you're going to have a lot to talk about.
100%.
And that's what makes it so fucking genius. And it's honestly the perfect kind of movie to review.
Yeah.
I'm so fucking happy we did this. Charlie, thank you so much for
Charlie,
being here.
thank you.
You offered so much like wonderful insight that I wouldn't have thought of.
Absolutely.
And I love your perspective. And you are always free and welcome to come back on Let's Scream, whatever movie you want to talk about.
Yes.
We would love to have you again.
Well, thanks for having me. A, the pleasure's all mine. B, I could not think of a better movie to sit down and talk about because it's just one of my personal favorites, and it's so cool to, compare the perspectives that, I shared compared to the perspective the two of you share, and how much they're aligned, and yet, like, where are these variances and how we can see, like, watch a film like this and, like, all kind of see ourselves through some of the, like, microaggressions. Like,
100%.
There's a really good podcast that I would shout out. It's called Black Men Can't Jump in Hollywood. And it's these three black guys that, like, review films. They talk about this, and I was listening to them to do some research. And they talk about how this is basically microaggressions becoming horror as a film.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
so cool.
Well, because those are scary.
Those are scary.
terrifying.
I mean, like, with my experiences, when you start to hear those, it just makes you think so much more like, I don't know what you're about. Like, it makes me not... It makes somebody way less trustworthy. You don't want to be around them.
Like
It's
I said
just-
earlier, that's
'Cause
not
I'd rather-
very Yas Queen of you, Becky.
Because with like people who are like outwardly like racist or homophobic, it's like, well, I just know to avoid you because
Exactly.
you've shown that. But those types of people with the mic, like that's so scary because it's like, I don't know what your intentions are.
You could be tricking me into getting my brain transplanted.
Sex slaves!
Sex slaves!
I'm not here to be a sex slave. Do not give me a lobotomy to be a sex slave.
The one thing we did not talk about, Rod's maybe his best moment of the entire show, is the whole monologue about Jeffrey Dahmer fucking people's skulls.
yeah.
You went over there, you're sucking dick, or you didn't know you was sucking dick because he cut your head off, but then he's fucking your skull and you're sucking dick anyway.
Yeah. So good. So fucking good.
On that note, anyway, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yes.
I look forward to coming back for future pods. There's all kinds of great movies for us to talk
You're
about.
always welcome.
Yeah.
Big fan of the show as always.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're
Thank
so sweet.
you.
Thank you, Charlie. You've always been such a fierce ally and a fierce friend, and I appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
All right, y'all. So that is it for this episode of Let's Scream. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you had fun with us at the Armitages. Armitage? We hope you had fun with us at their crazy ass house and learning all about the Sunken Place. We encourage you to follow the pod, like the pod, and please leave a glowing review of the pod, of course. You can also send us movie requests for future episodes. You can follow me at Parker_Will_C.
And you can follow me at StevieNash95 on Instagram.
And Charlie, where can the lovely listeners of this podcast follow you?
Find me on I Refuse to Call It X. Find me on Twitter and find me on Instagram at C_low, LOWE_Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Do I follow you?
And he's...
Steve and I are about to follow each other.
And you're single, right?
I am.
And he's single, lady. He's very handsome. He's got this mustache he's rocking right now. It's doing a lot for me. So definitely give this man a follow. And until next time, this has been
Let's
Scream.
Bye.
Bye.